Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleague Jim Patterson and Paul Estabrooks. Jim and Paul will be today's presenters and will discuss the topic of Lean Portfolio Management with Azure DevOps and OnePlan. This webinar is a new addition to our series of Agile webinars, so if you enjoy this video, feel free to watch the others we have available on our channel and look towards the next installment, which we'll be releasing soon. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again, and I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thank you, Robert, and welcome everybody. We're pleased to present this topic to you today. It's a trend and where the industry is headed in a big way. And today we're going to talk about the concepts of lean portfolio management and how that might apply, and as you can apply that through your use of Azure DevOps for more agile types of approaches to project execution. So with that, let's talk about some of the fundamentals. It's really about achieving business agility in the marketplace today. As things are rapidly changing, the pace of change continues to change, but business agility isn't necessarily just a hard test. It really is a mindset, and it really is about an approach to running an organization as a more cohesive system. And it really is also about providing better flexibility as we can adjust and adapt to changing things in the marketplace, to deliver things faster and more quicker, and hence, if we're more effective at these things, potentially deliver these things at a lower cost by being more efficient and effective. One of the keys about business agility is, letting the focus and the centricity around this be around the customer rather than the project itself. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And as things get faster, as things change more rapidly, and as we have to become more adaptive, the traditional methods that we've used in the past for running the business and running our inventory of projects, often fails to keep up with the pace of change these days. So the need to make some modifications in our project and portfolio management approaches becomes paramount. Now, some of these things that we're going to talk about, they may sound like they're revolutionary types of things that we're looking to put in place, but really they're evolutions and more thorough adoption of concepts that have been in place for a while and just are becoming more and more, let's just say, critical to the way we want to do business so that we can be responsive and relevant in the marketplace today. So some of the challenges with the traditional ways we've done project and portfolio management are, some of it's around the, customer centricity challenge, as I'll call it. And, agile and more safe frameworks are geared towards putting the customers first and really about, that and customer satisfaction, delighting the customer, as opposed to the end all being the project itself and defining successes. Was that project on time and on budget, and that us patting ourselves on the back for that aspect of it. And then there's the aspect of business value, right? If we organize around projects, and we may miss the fact that a project is really a means to an end, and the fact that if we focus on the impact of the work and the value that's being delivered, as opposed to whether or not the project actually delivered something, that challenge or that focus needs to be addressed if we're going to meet the needs of the modern marketplace. And then the resource capacity challenge. If we're organized around projects, we're constantly battling and fighting to clarify if we have enough people or capacity to deliver this set of projects that we're drawing resources from the rest of the organization from. And the limitations here is that we have to get to the point where the people and processes that are required to have more alignment with the way we select and add the work and add value to the work, to make sure that we actually do have the capacity and we're actually allocating the right percentages or degrees of people to and resources to our projects commensurate with the value that's being delivered. And then the other part of it is the people challenge. As we segment and fragment people across the organization, across different types of projects, we may be not giving the people in our organizations the ability to get the greater depth and specialization that they need, or even the broadened skill sets to help us get better at delivering the value that we're going to be talking about here today. So as they get more fragmented, for example, they may never become better at individual things that help us more effective and deliver things more quickly and with more quality. So hence, we're finding that organizations are really kind of adapting and opening themselves up to more lean portfolio management capabilities or approaches. And lean portfolio management is embodied in the whole kind of SAFe framework, the Scaled Agile framework. And it's one of the 7 core competencies of what's called lean enterprise. And it really is a competency that aligns strategy and execution by applying lean systems thinking approaches to strategy and investment funding and agile portfolio operations and governance. So really becoming more agile in our approaches and delivering in certain ways, and even looking at the way we initiate things and fund things in a much more different fashion than we've done traditionally in the past. So why lean portfolio management? Well, there have been some case studies done by Scaled Agile Inc., for example, that talks about some tangible things and returns that we get. If we want to develop a culture of innovation, flexibility, and speed, and we have to make some changes to the way we've done things in the past if we want to get better there. And the case studies show improvements in the following areas that are measurable: in the areas of productivity, in the areas of time to market, which is critical today, in employee motivation and or satisfaction, and as well as the quality of the things that we deliver. So there's returns on this that show that if we implement some of these and even get started in implementing this in organizations, that we'll see some tangible benefits relatively quickly. One of the key precepts here is organizing around the flow of value. So instead of actually organizing around the project of itself as a be-all and end-all, that we move from more product orientation or services orientation, which could be an end product that we're actually delivering in the organization. And then understand value streams, and how do value streams map to the things that we're doing within the rest of the organization. And the focus on the value stream is really about achieving business outcomes rather than the be-all and end-all being around just the completion of tasks as planned. And in lean portfolio management, 3 key pillars in here are the strategy and the investment funding approach that we would do in LPM. Then there's the agile portfolio operations component. And then ongoing, there is the lean governance piece of it, where it's the adjustments and the responsiveness to change. The agile portfolio operations being more the day-to-day operations that we have. And then the strategy and investment funding is really about how we make investment decisions and how we allocate the funding. So traditional approaches in organizations and traditional project and portfolio management tend to be a little bit matrixed, where we have silos of places in the organization that deliver certain types of capabilities. And these silos will often inhibit the flow of value. They tend to inhibit the fact that because we're matrix, our projects have to borrow and beg sometimes for resources from these different areas to get them together to come together. Where in a more lean portfolio management approach, people are organized around the streams of value themselves. And we apply these teams in a more dedicated way, in a more self-sufficient way, with a shared mission and vision, and they get better in that specialization and in that application of that. And we actually end up becoming more efficient in the way that we actually apply resources and the way we have throughput and delivery. So when we talk about that, there's the operational value streams, which are the things that and the people who deliver the end user value ultimately of the products and the value that we're delivering for the customers that also benefit our own organizations. And then there's the development value streams that are the people who develop the solutions that are used by the operational value streams. The thing is, we have people dedicated to these areas, and they support an ongoing stream of delivery of value rather than looking at individual projects as the, let's just say, end goal of what we are trying to accomplish. The other piece is to be more responsive in the way we do planning. In the old model, annual operating plans was a big component of that, where you have this annual planning and this dedication of budgeting, and then we would actually treat the whole year of our projects based upon rigid budgeting cycles. And it would also make it more rigid in the responsive to change, because we'd look at that plan and say, this is what we have to adhere to define success. moving more towards rolling wave planning and budgeting, meaning that as you look at the lean concepts and the SAFe concepts, there should be a minimum of at least a mid-year or an every 6-month process, and ideally prescribed as a quarterly process where we are planning, budgeting, but then adjusting on a more frequent basis and adapting to changes, because the landscape that we face in the marketplace, the landscape we face internally or with our competition or with customer demands are changing more frequently, and an annual exercise on this is just not enough to make this happen and be responsive and effective. And then there's the concept of how we fund these things. You know, in the past, we would actually make independent funding decisions on projects in and of themselves, meaning that projects themselves independently on a more granular basis are competing for funding. Where if we look at this, funding at a value stream level, at a higher level in the organization, with some guardrails around how we would spend that money, enables faster value delivery, but let us actually allocate according to organizational priorities of what we say the business that we're in and what value streams we're going to deliver to our customers, and then allow us to have individual projects that are part of those value streams consume that budget overall and not try to justify their funding individually as we go through that. And we can adjust as we have our intake and our authorization process, determine what efforts are going to consume the budget from the value stream, and see how we do that over the course of our funding cycles. The other piece is this concept of investments by horizon. And as we look at this, like Horizon 0 may define, or Horizon 1 may define our existing products or the things that are near term that we're delivering. And that may be a lion's share of our budget. But we also, if we're going to be innovative organizations that actually evolve and keep an eye on where we need to be in the future, we have to look at horizons like Horizon 3, where we might have some more idea-related things and things that we want to get into the pipeline, such that we can factor those into the budget based on the horizon, so that we don't get all focused on just keeping the doors open and operating on the things we already know, but allocate enough of our focus, time, and effort and funding towards the things we need to get to in the future as well. Another concept of LPM, or lean portfolio management, is the idea of participatory budgeting. You know, as opposed to the old school where, you know, a bunch of executives kind of in a room somewhere hashing things out on a spreadsheet and then coming up with a budget of some type. This is really about getting more aspects of the organization involved, more parts of the organization, more contributing people making inputs and even presentations towards why we should be doing things and when, such that we're factoring in information from all the required let's just say participants and or stakeholders in this, such that we make a more comprehensive decision based upon what we should be doing. You know, as we look at, you know, that, we get a more transparent process, hopefully deliver the items that may deliver more business value, and also ones that have a higher likelihood that we can succeed with and end up with a better final outcome. Another key piece is, as we talked about that resource capacity piece, the potential overload of demand. You know, with a more traditional waterfall approach to intake, we're constantly struggling with, do we really have the resources to make those things happen? And demand management in a more lean approach is really used by a more visual Kanban type of approach, where we're dealing more with work in process limits and teams that are dedicated to those specific value streams, such that we have a more tangible idea based upon velocities and team throughput, what we can actually handle over any given point in time. And then it's really a matter of us prioritizing what items we should do first and which items would deliver the most value to both us internally and to our customers. And really, it's about incremental development. You know, this iterative approach to doing agile approaches are really about delivering in smaller chunks rather than a longer duration, phase-gated kind of monolithic type of project. Instead of kind of checking gates along the way in a kind of move forward type of process, and at the end determine whether we've delivered the right thing in the right quality, and learn about things at the end of that cycle. You know, a more incremental approach in this lean approach, we deliver working solutions faster, and learning is continuous, and adjustments can be made every step along the way, rather than looking at a phase gate where we're just trying to adhere to an early idea of what the right approach might be. And consequently, it really decreases the focus on the voluminous business case that we used to have in order to get that complete definition up front of something that we think is going to happen, say, a year from now, or what we're going to need a year from now. Instead, have more initial commitments on lean business cases that establish just enough detail to understand the viability, a definition of what that minimum viable product would be as a starting point, with a business outcome for that minimum viable product. And then we can take it from there and make decisions based upon, did that minimum viable product return the value that we thought? And if so, it might just justify the next incremental piece of funding that we might want for the incremental adds to that minimum viable product. The real key here is that we need to change our mindset. You know, a lean, agile mindset has a number of different precepts to it. You know, some of the highlights here are taking a more economic view, meaning the value to us and to our customers in that mix. And, you know, base our milestones on objective valuation of what we have and what we really have as far as working systems and ability to apply resources to these things, and have realistic visualizations of work in process, but reduce the batch sizes and manage our lengths of things so that we can incrementally manage things a little bit better. And as we talked about with the participatory nature of these things, if we decentralize decision-making down to where the work is being done more, we get more responsive, more knowledgeable inputs into the process that can adjust more readily. And in that diagram over to the left, you'll notice that what's flipped is you see leadership at the bottom here, where leadership really enables these teams to get things done, and ultimately drives more value as we take that approach as far as a top-down command control type of approach, as we decentralize decision-making in this type of approach. Now, OnePlan tries to embody things. More and more of our customers are adopting this lean portfolio management approach for the way that they do business and try to achieve business agility. And, you know, this approach that we take, you know, we identify opportunities, you know, for improved flexibility and speed, and all the opportunities of what an organization can have from the current state that they have. And we talk about getting change agents, both trained and enabled within an organization, so we can initiate that change, and then put technology in place that helps enable or streamline the approach to getting this stuff actuated within organizations. And OnePlan really is a solution that helps us do that. It really enables us. It doesn't make the change for us, but it gives us a forum for where we can enable and actually realize those types of changes. And then also gives us the ability to measure things so that we can determine whether or not we're succeeding or need improvement in other areas and adjust accordingly. And the key there is that it's a process of continuous improvement. We need to focus on those metrics and those approaches and continually try to get better, because we aren't going to do it all in one pass. The key is it applies to all kinds of things, whether it be our portfolio management, whether it be large transformation initiatives that we have in the organization, or even just, you know, industry or business solutions or other targeted projects that we may have within an organization. This stuff applies across all across the board to what we want to deliver as an organization. And so transitioning now is, you know, how OnePlan helps us with that. Well, we enable that by having the systems capabilities and the visuals and the ability to make decisions within the OnePlan tool itself. Now, our focus here today was really about Azure DevOps. And things like Azure DevOps are great Agile portfolio management tools that support things like Scrum and Agile approaches to that. But where they fall short is really on the robust portfolio management capabilities. And yes, we show other things here like Jira and, you know, other board types of approaches to doing more agile execution, but putting the portfolio management things in place to allow us to use more lean approaches is something that OnePlan brings to the party. So, you know, we give you the ability in this lean and safe framework to define and track, you know, objectives and key results, to measure business outcomes. Are we achieving those outcomes with that outcome-based focus? Gives us the ability to make strategic investment choices using lean approaches and lean portfolio management. It also enables the concept of this program increment planning with that more quarterly focus on how we're going to make decisions and integrate team agile delivery and maybe more across the board input on making those decisions like we talked about with participatory budgeting. And then also helps leverage insights from the lean agile reporting that we have, such that we can keep our finger on the pulse of what is working, what is actually delivering value, or where we may want to redirect or take on other aspects in lieu of the things we're already working on. So OnePlan will provide the ability for Agile Portfolio Management that aligns with the lean enterprise aspects of SAFe. It also gives us the ability to do the strategic pieces that would align with what we're doing to make sure that what we choose is actually aligning with the overall vision and mission of our company. And the ability to do the things we talked about around value streams, whether it be budgeting, whether it be other visualizations or decision-making that we're doing, the ability to provide those things at the value stream level is something that we help enable at the portfolio management level of doing these agile approaches. So if we think about OnePlan bringing in inputs, now OnePlan does have its own agile capabilities internally, but at the execution level and at the portfolio level. But many of our organizations are already leveraging on the execution level things like Azure DevOps, and I'd say the majority of our folks are coming with us with that, but also with things like Jira, which is prevalent out there, which really is the same use case. But our focus today is really on integrating with Azure DevOps. And Azure DevOps, as we transition, this move towards more lean portfolio management is not an overnight thing. You may be doing things in a evolution where you're moving from more traditional waterfall, or maybe some hybrid where you have some waterfall and some agile planning, can all feed into a common holistic portfolio, regardless of whether or not all your things are agile right now at the execution level. It also helps us if leadership has a more traditional view and doesn't have that agile mindset yet, and you'd like to present that portfolio of data to them in more traditional business language or economic types of language. So OnePlan is built to integrate with Azure DevOps with an out-of-the-box connector that we have that allows us to define in OnePlan the portfolio management capabilities, which we see here, the portfolios, the programs, the epics, and align ourselves with the execution layer that Azure DevOps is managing on individual projects or teams. So for example, we may align at the epic or project level between OnePlan that gets approved through the portfolio management process, but all the detailed execution things rolling up into the portfolio may be coming from Azure DevOps. Things like our feature, user story, tasks, bugs, other level things may be coming from the execution work that's being done in Azure DevOps itself. Once again, providing a complete picture in OnePlan. And those connectors are really out of the box. So our Azure DevOps connector is something that provides through our OneConnect, a component for OnePlan that is a productized connector that allows us to just configure what you need to do rather than doing one-off, let's just say, code development in order to make that type of connection between the pieces of software in the mix. And it also, we are allowed to consume OnePlan either just from a browser, or as we see in Power Apps or OnePlan in Teams, or we can consume OnePlan right from within Azure DevOps itself, which is going to be a focus of some of the things we show you here today. Same thing holds true with Dynamics and SharePoint, because we are built for the Microsoft Cloud and actually share a common authentication with your Microsoft 365. The key is to allow you to stay working with OnePlan and the tools that you work in every day, whether it's just your browser that you're working in or maybe in Teams, but very especially people that are working in Azure DevOps being able to surface it right there as well. So the key is to provide the ability right here in this picture of Azure DevOps with OnePlan capabilities right within it, so you don't have to leave where you're at if you're doing Azure DevOps work, and add that portfolio level value for you. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Paul Estabrooks, who's going to show you some of these things in action and how we can do these things today if you have a desire to do that today. So Paul, would you take it away?
I'm going to demo two things today. I'm going to start with what actually Jim was just talking about, which is integration with Azure DevOps. So I'm in one of our standard demo environments, which has that integration set up with those arrows that Jim just showed, and I'm going to drill into that. And then I'm going to jump over to a second environment, which gets into one of the lean portfolio management concepts, and we'll walk through value streams and PI planning and so forth in that part of the demo. So we'll start here. I'm in this demo environment, and you can see we've connected to a variety of different tools, and there are a couple here that are connected to Azure DevOps. So I would have the option, if I click there, it's going to It would have the option to go to Azure DevOps. I don't want to go from there, so I'm not going to go there. So I have that option, or I can drill into the product, into this particular project itself, okay? And I'm just going to switch my view here quickly to backlog. This particular project is a hybrid project. It has both a connection to Project Professional for a bunch of tasks, and then it has this connection to Azure DevOps. And I want to highlight a couple of things. I can connect at the Azure DevOps level here. There's the screen, and I can open this up, and it's going to go to the epic, which was that first section in Jim's slide a few minutes ago. And here I am, I'm at the epic level for that particular project. I've got a bunch of sort of standard information that you would track in Azure DevOps. I also have this ability to look at OnePlan and all of its content here. I always say this is kind of looking back through the looking glass. As I look at that same work plan I just had open in OnePlan is also openable here, resource plan details and so forth. These things are identical to this. So I could manage this particular epic either here in OnePlan or here inside Azure DevOps. So that's that tight integration that Jim was just talking about. Let's take this one step further. I'm going to go back to that work plan, back to the items we were just on. There we go. We can also drill in at the feature level. So if I click on this icon, you see it spun up another page. I'm now a layer below of where I was a minute ago, and I have some information, including the ability to actually charge time to this particular feature and have that travel back to OnePlan to update a timesheet or my work item if I want to. So again, that tight integration back and forth. You want to work here, great, but you can provide information that's essential over in OnePlan for us to plan with. Likewise, I can go one layer lower, and you'll see it's open to third sort of item here. And now I am at the user story or the task level. Again, you can see I can come in here and charge some time to this. I could update this and so forth. So from inside OnePlan, I can jump to the epic where it is in Azure DevOps, do some planning around that, assign out things, do the things you would do there typically, but also actually interact with the entire epic and all of its information from here, kind of that through the looking glass story. Or I could drill in as a user either to the feature or to the user story or task level as well directly. So we've connected those three things all back and forth between Azure DevOps and OnePlan. And that really follows that slide that Jim had with the arrows going back and forth as to where you want to manage data, but how you might want to access it so that you have that full view. Jim also mentioned, we do have OnePlan in here with all of its capabilities, is also embedded here in Azure DevOps, which goes to that sort of one interface, one user experience, OnePlan kind of model. As you can see, all that data is here as well. So I'm looking at that same environment. So that's sort of what I wanted to show you with the tight integration between Azure DevOps and OnePlan. Now I'm going to jump to my other environment that I have open. And this configuration is built around lean portfolio management. So I want to walk through a few concepts here and spend a bit of time on some of this so we could see how this functions and some of the capabilities in this particular configuration of OnePlan. So I'm in another portfolio that has a slightly different look to it. And if I expand it out, you'll see we have those value streams, and underneath that we have a combination of projects and epics that we are managing inside of those. And in fact, inside of an epic, we've also brought the feature level right to the portfolio. So I can see where we are in this structure, and we've created this idea of value streams that we're going to then associate the work we're doing to those value streams. We're going to be able to do that value stream budgeting. You can see that right here. We're sort of consolidating the budgets of these items. We could track other information on a value stream. So if I just click on one quickly, there's the budget for that one, but I can have other information around where does it apply and some other data that we might want to capture, as well as what are the epics associated with it. So we have this sort of hierarchical view of our overall portfolio and how we're going to manage this. I'll show a couple of other things while I'm here. If I just focus on epics for a minute, here's all my epics. And you can see that all of them have been assigned to a specific team. Some of them are on release trains. They've also been associated to some specific strategic themes that we're trying to accomplish as an organization. So, and I mean, we've already shown how they were tied to the value streams, but I can show here how they're also associated to some of these other things and get an initial view of where they are in terms of a team structure. If I want to, then I could group them by a number of different options. So one I might want to group them by is what product they're associated with. So now I'm looking at those epics and going on with that. Okay, so I have all that information. So I could do all that sort of organization here around that. So now I want to show some program increments. I could show that here. I could see my PI summary. I'd see what's in each program increment. So if I'm doing program increment planning, I could come into this area here and define what the next set of program increments would be, and then I can start to assign items to those. I'm filtering right now on some of this data and I'm looking at it. We don't typically do program increment planning in a view, so in a list, we're going to do it in a board view. Board PI planning, I'll try that one. Now you can see I've got my various program increments are these sections, and in here I've got cards for each of the user stories and features and where they fit, and I've also got strings between them that demonstrate the different dependencies of a particular card. So if I just pick on a card here and I go here and I want to say dependencies, it's got a couple, but I could add one, and that dependency can be either dependent, blocker, or related. So I have and they're color coded so that I can understand what's the nature of the dependency and what other card or feature and so forth is it actually connected to, so that I understand the interplay between all of these as I plan out my program increment. So I'm not going to create one, I just wanted you to see them. I can also, I know this is hard to read, so we keep it a little bit smaller just to put more on the screen, but you can blow it out so that you can see everything and what's going on. There's also a backlog here. So when you're doing program increment planning and continuous improvement, you know, under Lean Portfolio Management, there's always more stuff that you want to get to. And so what I would do is probably create a couple more increments and start to drop some of those backlog items in. You'll also notice up here that generally I'm actually over budget on each of these. So I probably need to sort of grab one and move it to a future PI. That's not going to help me because that's just going to make that one over budget. But I'm starting to level it out. Maybe the right move would be to start to plan out program increments, you know, 5, 6, 7, and start to move not only backlog items into where they belong, but shuffle some of these items, because clearly we've got a little bit more planned in some of them than we should have, and we need to organize accordingly. I can also view this using value streams. So if I go, I'll grab this one, why not? And I can see here, I'm just going to switch my views here to go all types just so I can see some data. Now I've got a lane concept. Not only do I have sort of the stages of Lean Portfolio Management, but I have my value streams organized as my lanes. And where do things fit? Right now I'm looking at sort of mostly epics. Where are they? These ones are in the funnel under each of the various value streams, and then you can see others that are in flight. We're analyzing and then we're working on them and so forth. So I can understand visually over the decision process where we are by value stream with each of these items. So it's very flexible in helping us view and understand what we want to do as an organization and how we want to plan out the work as we drive for delivering value and continually readjusting, creating a new program increment, pulling some stuff out of the backlog, addressing some items that didn't get done, moving some items out to make way for higher priority items, and then understanding within each value stream where we are in terms of the decision making, what's in the funnel, what are we reviewing, what are we executing, and how are we progressing generally. The third view that we can pull up here is if I go, I'm going to do a value stream roadmap. I want to look at this again with the epics laid out. So underneath that are all those user stories and so forth that have been mapped out to various program increments, but you can sort of see the broad strokes, the start and stop, but also some of that same interdependency while I look at this again by value stream in this particular scenario, or if I wanted to, I could see it by product. because we've productized some of this. So we want to know, those broad products that we as a business are investing in as we try and improve value, where do these same epics fit by product? So lots of different visualizations and the ability to define a program increment and manage the backlog, move data into each program increment, set budgets and other thresholds on those particular program increments to make sure that we are planning and we're constantly driving towards the realization of value. We're addressing change and agility, the need for agility constantly as we go. I've stayed in the portfolio module here just to highlight the different ways that we can understand the data that we have. We can organize it hierarchically in the list here. If I go to that lean portfolio summary again and sort of see it all in that structure, we have lots of ways of planning it out using the boards, which is how we actually plan our own business, is using those boards to plot out where things will appear in which program increment, as well as then visualizing it over time using roadmaps. So I wanted you to see the integration with Azure DevOps at those multiple levels, and then I wanted to spend some time here in this particular demo highlighting how we organize around a lean portfolio management approach with teams and resource structures around teams, the hierarchical structure, and then the planning of program increments and where we move and define work, and how we understand how that relates to both products, value streams, and other things that we need to be monitoring to drive that value to our organization. And with that, Jim, I think I'll bring it to a close.
All right, well, thank you for the great overview, Paul. Now I'd like to summarize and talk about some potential next steps you can take for the things that you've seen here today. In summary, the OnePlan Agile Portfolio Management solution can drive people, process, and tools capabilities for really a lean portfolio management transformation. It doesn't do the work for you, but it provides enabling technologies to practice the concepts and to put into practice the concepts that we've talked about here today. You can evolve into this. It doesn't have to be a big bang approach to this. If you can't do all three aspects of the triangle of LPM, tackle the ones that you have the most control over today. And we can move into the approaches to getting into the strategic objectives and key results, the OKRs, the LPM and PI planning to do something on a more quarterly, more participative types of approach, and just integrate enterprise agile value delivery into the thinking and the way that we structure the way we look at our portfolio. And this OnePlan for Agile Portfolio Management capability that Paul showed you just the highlights of, it supports your business agility aspirations because it helps you enable and embody the things that will help us become more agile as an organization. And really, it's about taking your current portfolio management approaches that you have and modifying the essential practices within lean portfolio management as you are willing and able to adopt those. The key is you don't have to be done or do it completely to make that move. There's pieces you can do this incrementally as you move on forward. And OnePlan as an organization can help you not only with the technology, but also with the assistance to help you roadmap those things in a way that can be absorbed and adopted by your organization in a incremental way. And then OnePlan itself is built for the Microsoft Cloud. So those of you that are on Microsoft 365, this is built not only to be integrated with Azure DevOps, but with your entire Microsoft Cloud ecosystem. So we do this because that's our passion. Even though we have multiple gold certifications from Microsoft, our passion is project and portfolio management. And these trends to lean portfolio management is where we spend a lot of time with our customers today. We're consistently recognized as a leader in portfolio management, and we're currently Microsoft's partner of the year globally in project portfolio management, and recognized even by the analysts like Gartner and Infotech and Scaled Agile Inc. for our accomplishments and the things we contribute into this discipline. We can help you to whatever degree you'd like to be assisted. Yes, we can provide you the technology that helps enable this, but we also focus, should you want us to, on the people and process side of things to help you get from where you're at today into this future state that embodies the things that we talked about here. We do webinars on these types of topics weekly, about weekly, not every week, but for the most part weekly. Our next webinar that's scheduled for June 9th, this time next week, is extending Azure DevOps and Jira into an adaptive portfolio management solution, meaning you may not be fully agile in everything or in a full agile mindset with leadership. And that adaptive piece may be that you have a combination of Agile things, or maybe segmented between Azure DevOps contingencies and maybe a population that's using Jira, or maybe people that are using things maybe that want to do it directly in OnePlan, as well as maybe some holdover waterfall projects as you transition into Agile. So we're going to talk more about that more hybrid type of use case next week. If you want to get started today, we have free trials available up on Microsoft's appsource.com. There is an Agile Portfolio Management template up there that you can go with, or an adaptive or more strategic focus. And we're happy to assist you on that and chaperone you through a trial experience. So feel free to download, or let's just say activate a trial up there for yourselves. And you can reach out to us, and we're happy to support you through that process to help you get the most out of your time invested in that trial. We also have the ability to give you a free roadmap workshop if you want to have some discussions of where you sit today, what your current state is. Talk about what your desires or future state aspirations are, and let us discuss with you and maybe help you, guide you on what it might take to get you to that future state, and in what increments you might get there, and what it might take to do that. You may own a good chunk of the technology that's required for this, and it might only be an incremental investment for you to get to the things that we saw here today. So the free trial, the roadmap workshop. But if you're not even that far in your thought process or your investigation right now, we're happy to schedule a personalized one-on-one demo for you that's in more depth than what Paul showed you today, and maybe addressing your personal use cases and requirements that you might have. So please reach out to us. We have a general contact email at contact@oneplan.ai where you can reach out for us on that. Or if you just want to investigate further, go to www.oneplan.ai and look at the things that we have out there to help, let's just say, elaborate more on some of these concepts and even some of the other solution approaches that we have. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your busy day today. You can reach out to the general contact email, or Paul or I individually. You will be getting a copy of these slides, so you'll have that information available to you. OnePlan, we are invested in success, and by that we mean our customers' success. And we really do hope to engage with you and help you realize the benefits of what we talked about here today. OnePlan is really geared towards providing one interface, one hub and one user experience, and just one plan to manage all the aspects to come together in one common hub for your project and portfolio management information. Thank you all, and have a great day.